Our new song is available for pre-order at getcominghome.com. Check it out. Download iTunes to pre-order and support our work. From Time Magazine, Iran, Trump, and the third assassination plot. Now, we did have a super chat the other night that said, actually, we're at number 7. I think it was this morning, we're at number 7 with a bunch of different instances that happened. There were like ricin letters that were sent, and no one's really keeping track of the lesser known ones. But this story is pretty crazy because the DOJ put out a statement about the arrest of Asif Raza Merchant. And they said that he was arrested for targeting political individuals. Time Magazine is now saying that is Donald Trump. He was scouting out Donald Trump's rallies, counting what their security was, things of this nature, and was authorized, apparently by Iran, to offer up to $1 million to kill Donald Trump. This is absolutely insane. So this guy's been arrested. He was arrested on July 12th, one day before the attempt on Trump's life. They say that when he was arrested, Secret Service decided to up security on Trump, but then clearly did not. Something doesn't add up. But the big point of the story is we could be looking at, on the surface, based on the news, there have now been 3 assassination attempts on Donald Trump. One was stopped abruptly before this guy, a foreign actor, could have actually enacted his plan. Then you have the next day, someone actually struck Donald Trump with a bullet. And now, of course, you have the Ryan Routh story. So I fear for the worst. We're entering October. I hope the October surprise is something dumb, like a laptop gets found in a hardware store or something. Not anything related to this, but I'm curious what you guys think.
Melania Trump's memoir is coming out in October, so maybe that's the October surprise.
I doubt it would be bad for Trump.
Maybe that's good for me.
I think one of the important details here is that Iran was planning an assassination attempt against Donald Trump and not Joe Biden. And the reason for that is because under Donald Trump is when they killed Qasem Soleimani, leader of the IRGC. I think Iran had multiple plots to kill John Bolton and Mike Pompeo and Donald Trump as a result of that killing. And I'm happy they are unsuccessful, and we should continue taking out the upper echelons of the IRGC as retaliation for doing things like this. This is outrageous.
It's absolutely outrageous. And the shocking fear is that were they have to have been successful, this country is going to full-scale war. And that can only mean the absolute worst. So
I remember reading the reporting when this was first reported on, and it was a little bit absurd because it made it look like this guy wanted to fund an assassination, but not do it himself. And according to the reporting, he was going around apparently with an Uber driver or a limo wanting to stop at clubs to recruit an assassin. I mean, it seemed crazy. And so I thought, this is obviously not serious. Now, obviously, it is serious, and there are some new developments here. I think it's very interesting that the thing that catches my attention from what you just said is the fact that they suppressed the fact that Trump was the target. And that's probably because they thought that if they say it, it's going to help him politically.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
that would be a reason for the DOJ to go, well, it was just some high-ranking officials.
Look at this. This is the DOJ release on September 11th. Pakistani national with ties to Iran charged in connection with foiled plot to assassinate a politician or U.S. government official. And they had the evidence. They knew exactly what he was trying to do. Fortunately, the guy he met up with, because he's a moron, no one accuses people of being smart, was an informant who immediately went to the feds. And they were like, or I wonder if they say he was an informant. I wonder if what actually happened was when he went to the guy and said he wanted to pull this off, the guy panicked and called the FBI and said, hey,
he's like, I am now an informant.
I have nothing to do with this, man.
I had read, and I could be wrong, but in the early days, I remember in July reading that this man was known to U.S. intelligence before he arrived in the U.S. and that he arrived in the U.S. on a visa that was approved by a federal agency. And to me, that always seems strange. Like, if you know someone has malintentions, why did we approve a visa for them to come stay in the U.S.? That seems like a way to prevent this to me, but I don't know. And so, the fact that he would then approach an FBI informant or whoever, like, that also seems sort of strange. I totally believe that there are threats to not just Trump, but all kinds of top officials that we'd never hear about because they're stopped so early in their tracks or because they never escalated anything else. I think that's par for the course. I think anybody in public eye probably deals with similar things. What bothers me about this case is that, this became the focus over what was happening in Butler. We weren't getting any information about the person who had actually shot Trump. We were getting a fair amount of information about this plot that they had successfully foiled. And to me, this is, again, collusion with the mainstream media. They're running cover for federal agencies when the agencies don't deserve it. If journalism is supposed to give you the truth, then they all should be saying, great about Iran, we're happy to cover it. Tell us more about what happened in Pennsylvania.
I have a question for you, Dinesh. What's your stance on foreign policy? Are you, I don't want to be too, are you for Ukraine, Israel, or anything like that? But like in general, how do you feel about foreign intervention?
I think I would say I'm by and large with Trump on this, and here's what I mean by that. I'm not an isolationist. I'm reluctant to intervene. I certainly am very reluctant to commit troops, but so was Reagan. So if I think back to my Reagan days, I think Reagan was quite prudent. Reagan was also much more transactional than we give him credit for. We think of Reagan as ideological because it was the Cold War. But remember, Reagan was very tough on the Soviets in the first term. And then he became surprisingly accommodationist with Gorbachev in the second term. And that's when the neocons were bashing Reagan. They're like, he's an idiot. He's falling for Gorbachev's lie. And he doesn't realize Gorbachev is the same as Andropov and Chernenko and Brezhnev. So I think what happened is I got a little suckered into the Bush deal. When the Iraq thing first came out, I thought to myself, this is so dumb. That the obvious stated rationale can't be the real reason for going into Iraq. There must be like another clever reason they're not telling us. And I thought it was more like the old Western movies, where the guy goes, the new sheriff goes into the bar, the bad guys are there, but he doesn't really know who they are. So he just pistol whips a few guys and he just goes, hey, there's a new sheriff in town. That was sort of my way of thinking about the Iraq War when it first happened. But now I think with some perspective, I think that this was a very bad road to go down. So I've revised my way of looking at foreign policy, partly because I think I understand better that war is a racket, no less than, let's say, welfare programs or housing programs. Well,
here's why I ask, because I imagined that you'd probably be somewhere in the Trump realm where Trump's like, with limited purpose, we might go in places, but we got Iraq war, et cetera. If Iran definitively was proven. And I don't mean like the federal government came out and said, trust us. I mean, literally, we knew for a fact Iran orchestrated the assassination of Donald Trump. Would you then support military reprisal against Iran for that action?
Absolutely.
Me too, 100%. And I am very, very anti-intervention, more so than you and Donald Trump. In a lot of ways, I was anti-war in the 2000s. But we've talked about this quite a bit. And this is what scares me the most about this story, is that I don't want to go to war with Iran. I don't want to be involved in foreign conflict. I don't like that we're funding the war in Ukraine. I do not like the U.S. involvement, all of these things. I know Elaad disagrees, but if a foreign government, an adversary of our country, were to assassinate one of our leaders, even if it was Joe Biden, you can't, I don't understand morally and logically you survive as a nation if you allow your enemies to literally kill your leaders.
Wait. So if they successfully assassinate Donald Trump, then we go to war with Iran. What do we do if they attempt it? What do you think the penalty should be now?
That's a terrifying question.
Yeah, well,
But the question really would come down to definitive evidence that we know for a fact it was Iran, the IRGC. I think there's a preponderance of evidence right now for the public on the surface. Iran definitely was doing this. The killing of Soleimani, they vowed retribution publicly. The guy's mouth is moving as the words are coming out of his mouth. We know they intend to do this. However, there's a question of murder versus attempted murder, and do we escalate to an extreme degree, which is severe international conflict in the Middle East with Iran, a mountainous nation with anti-aircraft capabilities? I mean, I don't want to get into war with anybody. I don't like the idea of the U.S. getting involved in these things. But I will just say this. I can sit here and say, in my heart of hearts, no war. We have to avoid it at all costs, no matter what. But I don't know how you function diplomatically with other countries and even hold treaties if an enemy can kill one of your leaders or even front runners for an election and then nothing happens. That's a declaration of war.
I guess I'm the resident neocon because I will take it a step further. I think if you spill the blood of an American service member anywhere, we should probably go to war with you. And that's what's already happened with our troops throughout the Middle East coming under attack by Iranian proxies. I think Joe Biden was weak to let those attacks go relatively unanswered because of this supposed fear of escalation. But I believe in peace through strength. And sometimes you have to use the big stick?
I don't completely disagree, but my fear of we lose service members because of Iran funding these militias and intentionally trying to kill our servicemen and women. And I do believe there has to be some kind of penalty in any circumstance for a murder, for killing. But to go to war with Iran is not some minor. It is not Iraq. It is not Afghanistan.
We could start with their proxies in Iraq, Lebanon, and other countries. Dinesh, I wanted to ask you, I feel like on the foreign policy question of our time has become if we should defend Taiwan if China invades. I feel like they've been talking about that for most of your lifetime too now. But what do you think about that core question? I know that's I
think we should do it. By and large, I think that the way we handle these issues is I like the sort of in-between position of the Reagan doctrine. So the Reagan doctrine is people should fight for their own freedom. We don't actually fight for them. They fight. We help. And that was Reagan's model when the Soviets invaded Afghanistan. The U.S. did not deploy troops, even though this was a direct invasion of 100,000 troops. The United States sent some Stinger rockets. You can shoot down Soviet helicopters. So my point is that we should make it difficult and expensive and counter the Chinese attack. But if you're asking if we should have a massive deployment of U.S. troops, I would hesitate about that.
Well, let me ask, is it not too different what we're doing now with Ukraine against Russia, what we did with Afghanistan against Russia, the Soviet Union when they invaded them?
Yeah, I think you can make an analogy because I think that in the Ukraine case now it is a proxy war, right? And the difference I think is the level of U.S. national interest is not the same in the two cases. In the Afghanistan case, you have to look at the background. The Soviet Union had gobbled up 10 countries between 1974 with the fall of Vietnam. So Afghanistan was number 10. So this idea of a kind of escalating Soviet empire was a serious threat. The U.S., I think, had a big strategic interest there. And the U.S. didn't provoke that war. So with Ukraine, there are all kinds of sort of other factors involved. Of course, the Cold War is over. We have a much smaller interest in Ukraine. We're deploying relatively enormous resources in a war that's not so important to us. But on the other hand, like, for example, I would make a distinction between our interests with Israel on the one side and Ukraine on the other. I don't think that those are equivalent. Part of the problem with our political debate right now is, Mr. Trump, who do you want to win, Ukraine or Putin? As if that...
I think that's such a weird way to phrase that.
Right? As if that, settles the issue. That does not settle the issue. That doesn't even begin to settle the issue.
It's like they're asking about the Super Bowl. Like, who do you want to win this year?
But Trump nailed it. He says, I want the killing to stop. I want the dying to stop. And I'm like, agreed.
Well, I think, Dinesh, what you're saying is it's not black and white, right? When you come to the negotiation table, nobody's going to be a winner there. Ukraine is likely going to have to give up some parts that Russia conquered, and Russia will likely have to give up much less, but neither side would go away happy. It won't look like there's a clear winner on either side, especially with all the casualties Russia's taking. So,
sure. And that's true of what's going on with Palestine and Israel, right? There's no way to negotiate a deal there where everyone walks away being like, wow, this was great. I'm so happy we did this. I think it's why it's interesting to see so many people turn to Kamala Harris and say, we want a ceasefire, we want the release of all hostages, and we want these in absolutes, because it's a position she can never deliver on. And I'm sad about that, right? We want violence to stop. On the other hand, there is not a solution that would make both parties happy, and they are clearly not impressed with the Biden administration. Otherwise, they would have come to the table by now.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.